Hi, I'm Sean, and welcome to the Love to Own Your Business podcast. Here we grow businesses we love to own. Each month, we share great advice on how to do that, and also on how to avoid the pitfalls that make us love our business not so much. If you look up from the road at just about any point in your daily journey, and your eyes happen to fall on just about any storefront sign, you're likely to see the phrase help wanted. For businesses that have managed to weather through the last 18 months, there is now a parallel epidemic of employee scarcity that seems to have no vaccine in sight. No matter the industry, the frustrations of worker availability and position fit that were among the highest of priorities leading into the recent great pause are now trivial compared to what businesses are experiencing today. The artificial economics of entitlements notwithstanding, there's presently a marked shift in the balance of employment power. Setting the whys aside to focus on the hows, today's guest is here to bring a broad perspective on this and more from his HR consulting perspective and from the multitude of businesses that he serves. With us this month is Kevyn Rustici, an HR technology and strategy consultant, a co-host of the podcast Time Out with Leaders, and a gentleman who has taken the phrase pay it forward and turned it into a lifestyle. I asked Kevyn on this month to share what he's hearing from the trenches about what is working and what is not during this transition back to relative normalcy. So hi, Kevyn. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Sean. Pleasure to be here. And thanks for that very, very kind introduction there. Appreciate it. But yeah, there's a lot of signs in those windows these days.
Yes, that's right. Everywhere you look, like I literally everywhere you look.
Everywhere. Every billboard too. There used to be like a movie coming out. Now it's like help wanted. It's like employees. Yeah. So it's a war out there is what we're all referring to it as.
That's right. Why don't we start out by telling us a little bit about what you do? Talk about everything that you do, for everything from your ADP to your podcast. Give us a sense.
Yeah. So again, thanks for this opportunity. My name is Kevyn Rustici, like you mentioned. I never was interested in HR, so I kind of stumbled upon my passion project, if you will, and that really inspired my friend and I, Tyler White, to start a podcast because there seemingly was a disconnect between the people and the leadership of some organizations, and we seek out the organizations that have the right leadership in place, or we feel like is the right leadership in place. And so that's been an unbelievable opportunity. And during the pandemic, I really looked inward, Sean, like I know you did too, and really took a step back and saw like, well, where are my strengths? Where is my passion? Where do I feel most valuable? And how do I help the most people? And that comes from networking. It comes from meeting new people, and it comes from stepping outside of our comfort zone, which I know is now like everywhere, but yeah. I really had to do that myself in order to find where I wanted to go with my future. And now a proud father, it makes it even more ominous, if you will, that you have to find and strike that right balance. So I love to consult businesses. I help them from an HR perspective, really connecting their people to the financial impact, or the HCROI, which is a term that is going to become more and more popular today with the SEC changing and ISO certifications. But I really help businesses focus on their people, their process, and their technology in place today to enable them to make more data-driven decisions, leveraging data to gather insights and take precise action. So again, thank you so much, Sean, for having me on your show today.
No, it's always my pleasure to have guests here. Like I always feel privileged for people to take the time to sit and have a conversation with me. So thank you. Yeah. Getting to the main event. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Everybody's in the same boat. Workers everywhere, but not a drop to drink. So of the employers that you would do interact with, what is it that the ones who can attract employees, what are they getting right?
So a lot of them, I would say the employers that I've seen to be most successful are the ones that are effectively listening to their employee base, right? We had a fundamental shift in the workforce, and I jokingly refer to it as a bite of the forbidden fruit, right? We had a bite, we had that work-life balance. We saw that life was greater than work just itself. And it was a reality check for most Americans, right? I mean, we work to live or live to work. I mean, and in essence, we're flipping back to a European style mindset. And it's really the companies and the leadership that understand that their people are their most valuable asset. And when they understand that, like the greats like Danny Wegman, they always say that we're an HR company that just happens to sell groceries. And I think that is the mindset of employers who are standing above the rest and have that competitive advantage, is really the ones that are that beautiful fruit, that forbidden fruit that corporate America didn't want us to taste, but understand that there needs to be more work-life balance and willingness to evaluate the process, evaluate the people, the technology that they have in place to enable others to really work in those flexible schedules. Because I mean, it's about time we reinvented the 9 to 5. It was something that Henry Ford kind of popularized back when when we were pushing out more cars than ever before. But it's like, is that really the most effective strategy? And now we're seeing studies of the 4-day work week that's changing everything. So I think the smart employers are the ones that are actively listening to their employees, because their employees are going to tell them what they want, what they're looking for. And odds are it's probably not that ping pong table or the fancy snack shack. It's benefits that matter and how they're going to impact their family. It's more PTO. It's celebration of taking PTO. I mean, it's one thing to have it, but if you're shunned for taking it, then don't have it in the first place. So it's the ones that are thinking outside the box, Sean, that are really elevating themselves. The ones that are simply checking the box and adding a sign-on bonus right now are not the ones that are having success, because it's not just monetary anymore.
No, I think you hit on a very interesting point, that caring about our employees and what they have to say is a thinking outside the box element, is a complete and utter paradigm shift for many businesses. Not necessarily the ones that always got it right, but the ones that sort of were on the fence between profit making and squeezing as much as they can out of their margins, et cetera, or the short-sightedness, right? The quarter to quarter as opposed to the long term. I totally agree with this, and I think that we have a long way to go. And I wonder how much of the backlash and difficulty in hiring is just the fed upness of the individuals that say that we haven't heard, or we haven't been heard of late, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it goes back to the surveys, right? And it's funny, right? But you ask an employer, I'll be sitting down with a client and I'll say, do you guys use employee survey? Oh yeah, we definitely do. Okay, great. What do you guys do with the information? Oh, sometimes we do action. I said, awesome. How do you communicate that? Right. So it's a breakdown of communication, but it's understanding too, is that don't survey your employees if you intend to do nothing with it.
Yeah.
The intention is there, but then it changes the trust factor, right? Now we see PwC, we see the big five moving towards this idea that trust is most important.
Oh yeah.
And once we develop trust, then comes that famed resistance or resilience, right? My most hated word in 2020 and 2021 was resilience, because it didn't boil down to the real fact that it's trust, it's transparency.
Yeah.
And I think that's something when we were told to wear masks, stay in your home, we lost loved ones. That was an emotional, almost like a war, if you will, that we all went through. Now we're hearing terms like PTSD, we're hearing burnout, we're hearing all these terms. That was all a shared lived experience. And then when we're returning back to the workforce, drawing that hard line in the sand and not any options or understanding is probably not going to go over very well.
Yeah.
And some employers have tested it and said, oh, we're bringing everybody back in September. And then when they hear the messaging from a resounding amount of the workforce, it's like, I'm going to jump ship. I'm going to find another job, another employer that understands that flexibility is important to me, or I can do this job from my seat at my house. I don't have to be in the walls of the business. So I think, yes, listening is almost a dying art in every conversation that we're having, but I think we have a lot of good case studies. Right? We have Kodak, we have Xerox, we have some of these behemoth animals that we never thought were going to go anywhere. But when they don't create those cultures of innovation, sharing, having conversations across the aisle amongst different departments, things are missed, things are lost, and opportunities are missed.
Yeah.
And then enough opportunities missed, and you bring in the wrong people, and you start to destroy your culture. It becomes that negative Nancy kind of conversation internally that just kind of replicates like a cancer almost within an organization, really stunts their growth.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And the word trust being the anchor for not only just attracting employees, but keeping them in your organizations. I always think that if an employee can trust that they have a future with you, they will stay, right? If you can show them a future, right?
100%.
On your LinkedIn profile, you use the summary phrase, flipping HR from cost center to profit center. What recommendations would you offer business owners to use data or otherwise to really decide when it's appropriate to begin the hiring process?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors in that, right? And it's almost a moving target right now. As quickly as technology is advancing, we're trying to play catch up, right? So we talked about a labor shortage, right? We've seen all these help wanted signs. Now there's no true definition of a labor shortage. There's 7 million people still waiting on the sidelines waiting for a job. Now, a lot of people said, well, it's the federal money, it's the state money that we're giving them. That's why they're not coming back. But if they really listened to the surveys, they really listened to what people were saying, they would identify there was flexibility, stability. I mean, they were dragged out like trash, right? It's like, how do you build back that level of trust? But I would say that data is nothing without insights, right? So we, as in HR, if 79% of CEOs know that HR needs to reinvent themselves, their particular HR department, but only 29% of CHROs believe that they need to reinvent themselves, what does that tell us? There is a huge difference of opinion, right? And I think when we start to trust our data and data to drive insights that drive action, it's one thing to have data, but if there's no data tied to a financial impact, there's no action. So until we can connect data to something that drives a fiscal responsibility or expectation or business goal, it's just going to be numbers on a page. Yep. So that's why I am on this mission to upskill HR professionals to be more data driven, to be more business minded, because through business, I feel like we can make the world a better place, because in HR, we're serving both the people of the organization, but also the key stakeholders and business owners.
Yeah.
So leverage data smarter. And I think technology, to answer your question, technology is advancing. There's a lot of business process outsourcing. So I say a lot of the tactical work that is labor intensive, that's dangerous, that as well as I, Sean, that there's a company out there that's trying to solve that. They're trying to use technology to solve and replace that person. So the quicker that we in our professions are always looking for the next thing or staying ahead of the curve, 47% of the jobs as we know them are gone in the next 9 years. So what does that tell us? We on ourselves as a person, as a civilian, if we want to stay a part of the working force, have to invest in ourselves. And that's where I usually start with data, is how effective is our learning and development strategy? Yeah. So it goes both ways. But I think the companies, like we said earlier, that understand people equal profits, put people before profits, are the ones that are ahead of the curve and really focusing on data, because now they're listening to their employees and saying, okay, we want to give you what you want. We listened. We want to give you what you guys want.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. I have two daughters. They're both 13 and 12 respectively. And I think about what you just said about that 47% of jobs is going to be going away. I always think about where should I steer my daughter? What should I encourage them? Because I don't know what's going to be there in the future or not. Yeah. What do you think is going to be gobbled up sooner rather than later?
You're going to start to see these shifts because labor is so challenging to find. Businesses are going to be forced to look at what processes can be digitized, what can be outsourced. So I always use the terms, are we buying talent? Are we growing talent? Are we renting talent, or are we botting talent? Because it's very, very important. And we've seen this time and time again, Sean, with the outsourcing of manufacturing. It was, what country could we go to that had the cheapest labor? We saw China, we saw Indonesia, we saw all those countries. Now, where is everybody talking about the next best thing? Yeah. Africa. Yeah. Why? Because it's the last standing ground within the entire world of cheap labor. Yeah. So now there's all this investment. It's all these companies are investing in it. We saw it in India. We see it time and time again. But until the companies understand they need to leverage technology to get them there, but then how do we reskill and upskill our current staff so then we don't have to go out and pay top dollar for you and I that took it upon ourselves to educate ourselves? Yeah.
Tell me, I like the 4 items: buying talent, renting talent. Can you elaborate on that? I'm interested in what that sounds like. Yeah.
So buying talent is what a lot of organizations are doing today. So if they fail to have a learning and development strategy, or do not have a talent pipeline, or succession planning. A lot of succession planning got swiped to the curb because of the pandemic, right? You're a finance guy. It's a very easy financial decision when you're sitting and saying, how do we stay open tomorrow? Who do I go after first? My most senior staff, right? But if I didn't properly train that next person up, that could be a revolving door in that role. So now I am buying talent. So now I see somebody that works at a company. Oh, I've always admired that company. I'm going to go buy that talent at top dollar, like we're seeing in the real estate market right now. I'm paying 30% over asking price because I can't afford, I don't have the skills within in order to get what I need. So that's what I call about buying talent. It's talent acquisition, right? Growing talent would be exactly what learning and development strategy. How do we identify? My friend, Dr. Nick Molinaro, is one of my favorite people for this. It's because he has an algorithm, psychometric analysis tool that can actually predict future performance of an employee.
That's interesting.
Right? Or even if they have potential for that leadership position. Now, how great would it be, Sean, that you knew that this person had leadership potential the day that they walked in your door? How are you going to treat them differently? You're going to invest in them. And that's why I call them assets, right? They're an asset, not a resource. They're an asset. I want to invest in them. I want to take care of them. I want to protect them because over time, they should provide more value back to my organization.
Exactly.
Botting, AI, technology, that's the other thing. And then renting is gig. We think about the growing gig work economy. That's renting talent. We're renting talent. We're trading time for money. And it's how can we put all four together to make the most effective workforce for our needs and to where we want to go, not only today, but where we're headed tomorrow. And the only way to do that is not a financial statement, because financials only tell us what has happened. And not what is happening, what will happen if no changes are made. And that's where data and analytics and metrics come in.
That's great. Thank you. Renting talent, it's sort of in my world, right? I mean, fractional work. And I see businesses moving towards that at a great rate, right? They find that the work week is 40 hours long, but traditionally, let's say, and I don't have, you probably have the data for this, but let's say of a 40-hour work week, how much exact work is done? Is it 15 hours? Is it 17 hours a week, right? So out of productivity levels that we talk about, I always wonder this, like maybe a fractional at 17 hours a week, you're going to get 17 hours relatively of billed services, right? As opposed to the full salary of the 40-hour work week where only 17 hours a week are getting done anyway. What do you think about that?
Correct. And then you think about the benefits conversation, then the tax implications, right? It's becoming more of an easy conversation. The harder it is to find your own talent and bring them in as a W-2, the easier of a decision it's going to start to be for businesses, right? So they tried the sign-on bonus, right? Leaders are going to say, well, that didn't work. Money is not working. What is the answer, right? They're going to then turn to the financials. They're going to look at the gig work and say, well, we don't have to pay them benefits. We don't have to W-2 them at all. We don't have to process their payroll. We're just simply paying them in a check for their time, right? It's no different than what we're doing today. It's just they're not a part of the team. Now, not every job can obviously be gigged or contracted out. But if HR can get out of the grips of being in that administrative function and step out of the woods and spend 80% of their time on strategic initiatives, particularly to where they can do that. And again, that gets us back to the people, the process, and the technology in place, because I'll stay here and you'll say it too, is not every job in an organization can be outsourced. Not every job in an organization you can work from home. I get that. But if you're precise and you know what jobs can and cannot be, and then you're articulating that out to the community, and you're giving people options, or you're saying, hey, you can work your way up to work from home from a performance-based metric system, I'm all for that. But if that's people's end goal and that's where they want to do, and you have to give it to them, how can you help them get there, but then still getting something back in return? And I think it's this light switch approach, or this all or nothing is really limiting businesses, because it's not all or nothing. You have to be specific with things now and individualized. It's one-on-one relationships more than it's ever been before.
Yeah. I think that the phrase work-life balance is not about balance. It's about blend, right? So at the end of the day, I think what we learned more than anything out of this pandemic is like you said, everybody woke up to the fact that we can really blend our lives and be much happier, and we don't necessarily need 40 hours of productivity between these hours, right?
Yeah.
Also, this difficulty in hiring is that I think the discussion about the money being placed in the unemployment and all of that, it's not that people prefer that. I think what they've finally been given is the opportunity to choose which organizations are going to benefit them. So they now have time and they have a safety net that they never had before to look further, look
Yes.
deeper. So I think it behooves the employers that really want to stand out and really attract those employers. How do I really be different?
Yep.
Maybe part of this also will be that there will be a shift to gig working as a mode for many of the people who aren't going to find the organizations. So I'm going to take a piece of my time for all of these different organizations and take what I need from them,
Oh, yeah.
but give them the value.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what they're going to have tough decisions to make.
Yeah.
And the more information, the more data that we can arm leadership with, the better insight information that they have to drive business decisions or discussions.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because it was the perception, right? The forbidden fruit. We saw something back to faith. We saw something previously thought impossible become possible, right?
Yeah.
We were told that we were not going to be productive. We would never be able to work from home. Well, we did in 3 short days in most organizations. Everybody was working from home.
Yeah.
Time back in my day, what does every person in our lives tell us when they're either on their deathbed or they're having they had that gut check moment? I wish I had more time,
Yep.
right? So if an employer understands that people just want more time back in their day and that balance and work and stop working to live instead of living to work instead of working to live, it's back to that European mindset. And it's like, how do we continue to show that emotions of people that sometimes finance and CEOs don't care about? Let's face it, they don't.
Yeah.
Until we can show up in numbers and say, hey, every time you say, hey, there's your door, you don't like it, that costs you $75,000.
Yeah.
I think people would start questioning and saying, what, should I actually say that, or should I do that?
Yeah. Maybe the key is to stop thinking about it as I'm paying you for your hours. I'm paying you just for the job. Whether the job
Correct.
gets done at 2:00 in the morning, if it can be supported by the type of work, etc., obviously.
Correct.
But it doesn't matter. But we still want a pigeon, especially in the manager side of things, right? The difference between leadership and management. But the manager side often tends to default to just the control of time.
Oh, micromanagement if I can't see you, you're not working, right? That's their mindset. They're like, I've worked for them. You've probably worked for them in the past. And it's like, no, I'm still doing everything because you developed me and you hired me to do this. Now that's not everybody, but if you had better tools, like I mentioned with Dr. Nick, and you could identify talent that's going to work and not work earlier on in a particular role. Yeah. Or let's say even Wegmans, Sean, doesn't even want to get rid of anybody. Like you have to try to get out of that place. Yeah. They won't let you because they'll continue to find, well, what do you like? What are your strengths? Yeah. What other areas of our organization can we find for you? Because we don't want to lose you. Yeah. That's a very different. Yeah. We see things very linear, very horizontal in most organizations because it's, oh, this is my department. I only have dominance over this area of the business. Yeah. But it's until we can start making those vertical shifts to then go horizontal, that's in more alignment with people. Like you said, it's people don't quit jobs, they quit managers. Yep. People, number one reason why people leave organizations is not monetary. It's lack of professional development opportunities because they're not giving us that roadmap of where they see our future with that company. But efficiencies and cost cutting is not business strategy. It's not strategy at all. It's a byproduct.
You cut yourself right out of business.
Exactly. Yep. And if you diminish the innovation of your people, you're not focused on who you're bringing in your door. You just need anybody. That's when you start, that snowball effect starts really happening at an alarming rate. And then before you know it, you're selling to a merger and acquisition because your profits are in the toilet. And it's because you never listened and you thought your idea were the best ideas because you only hired yes people. Yeah. That's a very dangerous place to be.
Agreed.
So
totally agree.
I think challenging the status quo is what I would look for in my leadership team, because that is when you get the best out of everybody and really tap into their intellectual capital, or 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of intellectual capital, whether it was through work or professional life. Yeah. It's how do we tap into that and how do we unleash that so we can get the most out of our, and I use the term HCROI because it's coming. It's an SEC now terminology, human capital return on investment. What is it today and how do I maximize it? Odds are, if you see them as an asset to the organization, you're going to invest in them.
Yeah.
You invest in them and you know you're investing in them and you're seeing a return on the back end in a financial fiscal perspective.
Yeah.
That's really where we move forward. Data without insights is just numbers on a page. It's not going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
So you got to know what to ask it and where you're headed to even know what you need to ask it. So
such a good point.
It's fascinating. I think there's a lot of analysis paralysis or paralysis from over analysis right now because there's so much information out there. And when people are lost and you got lost souls, it's like, well, what's speaking to me? Instead of, well, I need to listen to everybody, formulate my opinions. One thing that stood out to me, Sean, and that's why I got on this data high horse, if you will, is that 22% of businesses use data and science to make business decisions. But I think a lot of business challenges like customer experience and customer service and lost customers and those KPIs that we focus on, they're always tied to a human person perspective. And quicker in us in HR that say, this is our challenge here. We have a high turnover rate in our call center. And we've seen turnover increase and we've seen customer satisfaction decrease. There's a correlation here. We think we need to start investing and seeing what's going on in here. Will you allow us? Then it's yes, because every customer lost is worth X to the business. And if we get customers that are happy, they're going to sell it for us. So then we don't need as much of a sales team. And then it's just so many things are connected. It's how quickly can we connect the dots?
Oh, that's a great point, because once you're a solopreneur, and you can control your message, you can control your branding, all that stuff. The minute you hire a forward-facing employee, now you've lost total control of what your message is, and now you've impacted your branding by a factor of 1, let's say, all right, or 10. And then the next employee that you hire, and then the next employee that you hire, and so on and so forth. So now you start diminishing or diluting the ability for you to present your best face forward. Why would you want to cheap out on that?
Yeah. And it's too, Sean, if I was to start a business tomorrow, right? What jobs do I even need, right? Like we have the luxury of being far more flexible than some businesses that have been established for 100 years. Because again, we can take a look back and say, do I need an accounting person or can I just use QuickBooks? Can I outsource payroll? Probably. Can I outsource benefits administration? Probably. Do I need the W-2 someone? Probably not. You start running the numbers and you start using technology to your advantage. I think there's this disconnect and the multi-generational disconnect, right? Is their view on technology. Is technology there to enable their success? Because that's what it should be there for. The second that technology is disabling us and we're doing more work to get the technology to work for us, we have the wrong technology. And technology is there to take what we don't want to do to enable us to do why we originally got into HR in the first place. And a lot of people will tell you, I got into it for the people. Well, you got into it for the people, but you didn't get into typing in their social security numbers and phone numbers and changing their beneficiaries. Empower employees to do that stuff because they don't want to talk to you for that stuff anyways. They want to talk to you about where's my future? Where am I headed? Where do you see me in 5 years?
It's an interesting, I guess, irony that the point at which you need the most HR support is at the very beginning of your startup. Like channel those dollars before you even get to the ancillary stuff, topper of the pyramid type of stuff. But I'm going to hire an HR person right off the bat to help me build the culture that I want from the very beginning. Easier to build it forward than to, like you said, go change a 100-year-old culture and bring it up to date. Yeah.
And a lot of people are trying to do that. They change their mission, vision, and values boards, right? The world of work has changed so much, but our thought process and our approach to business is lagging severely behind in most cases.
I agree. I talk a lot about the fact that we spend all this time and effort like trying to motivate employees when we really should be looking at what's demotivating them in the first place, right? It's a different world today for sure in that respect, right? The word gets around who's a net promoter or net demoter, right? So
Yeah.
You can have it both
And
ways.
word travels fast, like you said. We heard whether you like it or not, the cancel culture.
Yep.
There is more social influence now than ever before.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's so socially, the social economic climate or complex has really, really changed.
Yeah.
And business sits right in the middle of that.
Totally agree. From the HR person responsibility, it's to embody the mindset of the finance person or the COO person to be able to talk in the same language.
Correct.
If there's a disconnect because you can't communicate, it's not the CEO's fault right?
Or
As long as that CEO does have the mindset that HR is not a defensive legal protection position.
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
But a true business partner. If they get that, then it behooves both sides to make sure that they're each speaking each other's language, right?
Right. And then how do they define success, right?
Yes.
So managers, right? Frontline managers are going to have different things that they view as success than the COO, right? Yeah. They're held to different responsibilities within the organization. But if we in HR, we're writing these job descriptions, we should know what's going to motivate them and make them more successful in their role.
Totally agree.
If we enable their success, they're going to care a little bit more about what we do.
Yep.
And then we're not just saying everything that we know, right? It's about what do you have today? Where do you want to go? And what are your needs?
Yep.
And let's focus on those first, and let's walk before we run.
Yep.
But it's changing so fast. And I think some businesses that have a more strategic HR department and are leveraging workforce analytics are a lot of the same companies that are evaluating the 4-day work week.
Yep.
To your earlier point, do people really work 40 straight hours a week? There was a study done by ADP that their employers are now getting actually 9 additional hours of overtime that's uncompensated. So salaried individuals that are working from home are working 9 more hours a week. But there's this perception that we need to bring everybody back because they're going to be more effective, because they don't have the information. They aren't comparing before and after.
Yeah. They
just have the perception that we were more successful before. And I say business is an ecosystem, right? Yep. It's constant conversations. It's a marketing. It's the cleanliness of the office. It's all these different things. But to say that people, the second they leave their homes and they come into your doors, whether it's through their office door that they have at home or your proverbial door at the office, what does it matter, right? Like, what does it matter how they get to the office? It's how are they going to execute when they walk through those doors?
That's a great point. It is about, at the end of the day, it's about executing the job in the best possible manner, and getting them to do that is as best a partnership. You give me what I need, I get what I need from you. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect symbiotic relationship. Instead of I pay you, come here, you're on my time. If we can shift the paradigm from my time to our time, then I think that's a great.
Oh yeah. Everything is monetary. People are going to be picking off your top talent constantly.
Yeah.
So you got to find other ways to keep your top talent engaged. Yeah. If they're only engaged from a monetary perspective, that's going to lose its luster at some point.
Oh yeah.
That's only a small fraction of the population that really has moved to really change. But it's been awesome to really see this evolution, right? We talked about the gig work too, Sean. It's like that was like 2025. Now I've seen that significantly shift up.
Oh yeah. I wonder where the breaking points will be, right? Because at some point there will be a drying up of the entitlement side of things. And will we have by that time achieved a good striking balance between what it means to be an employer and employee, or will we just revert back to older habits because now there's been a shift back to the balance of power, so to speak, towards the employer?
If you lose energy and you lose excitement, I mean, over time, you stop caring about it. I think employees have went through it long enough that it's going to persist long enough. And I think it's going to persist a lot longer than what people are expecting. Everybody, I got really upset during the pandemic when a lot of business leaders that I was talking to said, I can't wait to get back to normal, right? If that is your thought, that normal was where you're headed pre-pandemic, that is not going to be the case. We have evolved more rapidly in 15 months that usually probably takes 10 years. That happened in 18 months or 15 months. But it's just like, we need to understand that. We need to understand the human component, applying data, applying science, and really understanding on the individual level how do I maximize? How do I manage that individual rather than the team itself?
Yeah.
So there's more tools, there's more science out there. It's tap into that. And because again, you said it, manager, there's difference between a leader and a manager.
Okay. So to close this out, what haven't we talked about that you think that business owners should really be aware of over the next 12 months?
12 months is going to be interesting. We're seeing like potentially the pandemic coming. We're seeing mask mandates coming back. And I think of the ones that said they want to get back to normal, once those mask mandates and things started open back up, they went right back to what they knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion would be get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Make uncomfortable your new comfortable, because you need to constantly be challenging yourself. We need to constantly be analyzing, reassessing, treating our organization like that living, breathing organism that it is, because the socioeconomic climate outside of your business is changing so rapidly that you can either get on the ship or you don't have to. But I can promise you that if you're not evolving, you're not adapting, you're going to get left behind, and it's going to be more of even an uphill climb. Yeah. So focus again on what I focus on: the people, the process, and the technology. What do we need? What do we have today? And where do we want to be in the next 5 years? And really start to work backwards from what you need from a people perspective, a skills perspective, giving yourself adequate time to get you to where you want to be. I'm excited. And thanks so much again, Sean, for this opportunity. Obviously you could share, we both share the same energy, the same passion, because I think we've seen it, right? We've seen what's possible, and we want to help others along to get there. Because I think we can change the world through HR. And it's just empowering HR, because HR are the people.
Fantastic. So, thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate it. If you want to learn more or connect with Kevin, you can find him at what's the best place for them?
Probably LinkedIn. Just look me up on LinkedIn. I spell Kevin with a Y, Kevyn, Rustici. And I'm starting up the HR Evolution is the consulting practice to really upskill, reskill HR, help businesses, HR departments, and really start the revolution of HR for the evolution of business.
I will be happy to carry that flag for you also.
Let's do it, baby.
And if you want to learn more about SLC and what we do here, you can find us at www.slcadvisorygroup.com. And of course, hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss any of our content. And we'll let you know when our next episode comes out. And we'll see you again next month. And thank you again, Kevin, very much.
Thank you, Sean.